There's a specific silence that falls over a room when a dream finally collapses. It is not the loud crash of a structure falling, but the quiet, suffocating realization that the effort you poured out, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, the sheer force of will, was not enough. For most of the human population, this moment is the end. It is the biological signal to retreat, to conserve energy, and to return to safety. Our brains are evolutionarily wired to avoid pain and seek efficiency, and failure is the ultimate inefficiency. It burns resources without a return on investment. Yet, there exists a rare breed of individual who stands in the center of that silence, surrounded by the debris of their efforts, and feels something entirely different. They do not feel the finality of the end. They feel the friction of the beginning. This creates a profound psychological mystery. What separates the person who breaks under the weight of a million failures from the person who uses those failures as the very bricks to build their foundation? The answer does not lie in talent, luck, or even intelligence. It lies in a fundamental restructuring of how reality is perceived, a psychological architecture that transforms suffering into fuel. To understand the psychology of the relentless, we must first dismantle our cultural obsession with the outcome. We live in a society that worships the trophy, the finish line, and the exit strategy. We are taught that the value of an endeavor is binary. You either win or you lose. But the resilient mind, the mind that strives even when the odds are mathematically impossible, operates on a completely different spectrum. For these individuals, the goal is not the primary driver, the process is. This is a subtle but earth-shattering shift in perspective. When your identity is tied to the outcome, every failure is a death of the self. If you fail, you are a failure. But when your identity is tied to the process, to the act of striving itself, failure becomes nothing more than data. It becomes a neutral event. The resilient individual looks at a failed attempt not as judgment on their soul, but as a feedback loop from the universe, saying, "Not this way. Try another angle." This cognitive shift requires a rewiring of the brain's reward system. In a standard neurotypical response, dopamine, the molecule of motivation, is released when we anticipate a reward. When the reward is removed or denied through failure, dopamine levels crash, leading to feelings of lethargy, depression, and hopelessness. It is the body's way of telling you to stop wasting calories. However, those who persevere through a million failures have unknowingly hacked this system. Through sheer repetition and cognitive reframing, they have trained themselves to release dopamine not when they achieve the win, but when they engage in the struggle. They derive satisfaction from the grind itself. They have learned to love the heat of the fire, not just the sword that comes out of it. This is why you often see high achievers reach a massive goal and immediately look for the next impossible challenge. They are not chasing the trophy, they are chasing the state of becoming. We must also talk about their relationship with time. The person who quits usually operates on a linear, transactional timeline. They put in X amount of work, and they expect Y amount of results by Z date. When the equation doesn't balance, they declare bankruptcy on the dream. The resilient mind, however, operates on an infinite timeline. They understand the concept of the compound effect deeply, not just mathematically, but emotionally. They realize that a stonecutter may strike a rock 99 times without a single crack appearing. To the outside observer, those 99 strikes were failures. They were wasted energy. But the 100th strike splits the rock in two. The resilient individual knows that the 100th strike was only possible because of the 99 that came before it. They have the psychological maturity to work in the dark, without applause, without validation, and without visible progress, trusting that the internal structure of their reality is shifting even if the surface remains unchanged. This level of perseverance requires the development of what psychologists call an internal locus of control. People who crumble under failure often possess an external locus of control. They believe that their lives are dictated by outside forces, luck, the economy, other people, or fate. When things go wrong, they play the victim because they believe they never held the reins to begin with. Conversely, the relentless individual believes they are the sole architect of their destiny. This can be a terrifying burden, but it is also the ultimate liberation. If you are responsible for the failure, then you possess the power to fix it. This mindset eliminates the paralysis of blame. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" they ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" They view obstacles not as barricades, but as gym equipment for the character. Every no makes them stronger. Every rejection thickens their skin. Every loss sharpens their strategy. There's also a profound element of ego death involved in this journey. The fear of failure is, at its root, a fear of humiliation. We are terrified of what others will think if we try and fall short. We are afraid of looking foolish. But the person who keeps going has usually reached a point where the vision is more important than the ego. They have stopped performing for an audience and started performing for a purpose. They are willing to look like an idiot in the short term to become a master in the long term. They understand that the critic in the arena is irrelevant. This liberation from the opinion of others removes the emotional weight from failure. If you don't care about looking cool, you are free to experiment, to stumble, and to look messy. You are free to be a beginner again and again. This humility is a superpower. It allows for rapid iteration because the ego isn't guarding the door, preventing you from admitting mistakes. Furthermore, we must explore the concept of hope versus optimism. Optimism is the belief that things will turn out well. Hope, however, is the conviction that the fight is worth it regardless of how it turns out. Optimism is fragile. It can be shattered by a harsh reality. Hope is durable. It survives in the dark. The people who strive through a million failures are not necessarily optimists. In fact, many of them are brutally realistic. They know the odds are stacked against them. They know the market is saturated, the climb is steep, and the competition is fierce. Yet, they possess a tragic, beautiful hope, a defiance against the void. They decide that the pursuit of their potential is a moral imperative. They would rather die climbing the mountain than live safely at the base. This is the Stockdale paradox, named after Admiral James Stockdale, who survived being a prisoner of war. You must retain faith that you will prevail in the end, regardless of the difficulties, and at the same time confront the most brutal facts of your current reality. This psychology is often rooted in a deep, sometimes painful, why. Friedrich Nietzsche famously wrote, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how." For the relentless, the goal is rarely just about money or fame. Those are shallow fuel sources that burn out quickly when the going gets tough. The relentless are usually driven by something transcendent, a desire to change their family's lineage, a need to prove a ghost from their past wrong, a calling to solve a problem that causes suffering, or a sheer artistic compulsion that feels like breathing. When the why is big enough, the how becomes manageable. The pain of discipline weighs ounces, but the pain of regret weighs tons. They are more afraid of arriving at the end of their lives, wondering what if, than they are of the temporary pain of failure today. They are running away from the nightmare of mediocrity just as fast as they are running toward the dream of greatness. Consider the role of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself. Every time you push through a moment where you wanted to quit, you're physically altering the structure of your brain. You're strengthening the neural pathways associated with willpower and grit. The interior midcingulate cortex, a part of the brain linked to the will to live and the drive to overcome, actually grows in size when you do things you don't want to do. Therefore, resilience is not a trait you are born with. It is a muscle you build. The people who strive despite failure have been in the gym of adversity for years. They started with small weights, getting out of bed when they were tired, finishing a task they hated, and graduated to heavy lifting, restarting a bankrupt business, rebuilding a broken life. They have conditioned themselves to view discomfort as a sign of growth. When they feel pain, they don't retreat. They lean in, knowing that on the other side of that pain is a new level of capacity. There is also a necessary detachment from the concept of fairness. One of the biggest psychological traps that causes people to quit is the belief that the world should be fair. I worked hard, so I deserve this. When the reward doesn't come, they feel cheated and bitter. The relentless individual understands that nature is not fair. Nature is indifferent. The storm does not care if you are a good person. It rains on you anyway. By accepting the inherent chaos and unfairness of life, they stop wasting energy complaining about the rules of the game and start focusing on how to play the hand they were dealt. They become stoic. They focus entirely on what is within their control, their effort, their attitude, their preparation, and surrender what is not. This acceptance creates a calm center in the middle of the storm, allowing them to make rational decisions when everyone else is panicking. It is important to recognize the role of micro-wins in sustaining this long-term drive. No human can run on empty forever. While the big goal might be years away, the relentless are masters at setting and celebrating tiny milestones. They don't wait for the finish line to feel successful. They feel successful when they stick to their schedule for one day. They feel successful when they learn one new skill. By shortening the feedback loop, they give themselves frequent injections of confidence. They construct a ladder where the rungs are close together, making the climb manageable. They adopt the mantra, "I don't have to build the greatest wall in the world today. I just have to lay this one brick as perfectly as a brick can be laid." And then they do it again tomorrow. This focus on the immediate present prevents them from being overwhelmed by the enormity of the mountain ahead. Ultimately, the psychology of the relentless is a psychology of self-love disguised as discipline. We often view discipline as a form of self-punishment, but true discipline is the highest form of self-love. It is the refusal to let your current self destroy your future self. The person who keeps going after a million failures does so because they believe they are worth the effort. They value their own potential enough to fight for it. They see a version of themselves in the future, stronger, wiser, actualized, and they are willing to walk through fire to meet that person. They are not striving to prove their worth to the world. They are striving to actualize the worth they already know exists within them. They are in a constant state of self-creation, chiseling away the marble of their limitations to reveal the statue inside. This journey is lonely, we must acknowledge that. When you decide to endure when others would quit, you separate yourself from the herd. You become a mirror that reflects others' lack of courage back at them, which can cause resentment. You will be misunderstood. People will call you obsessed, unbalanced, or delusional. The psychology of the relentless involves making peace with this solitude. It involves finding a sanctuary within oneself. It requires becoming your own best friend, your own coach, and your own cheerleader. In the dark hours of the morning, when the world is asleep and the doubts creep in, the resilient individual holds a council with themselves and reaffirms the mission. They learn to source their validation internally, becoming a self-sustaining ecosystem of motivation. The story of the person who fails a million times and keeps going is the story of the human spirit's refusal to be defined by its environment. It is the ultimate assertion of free will. Biology says, stop. Society says, stop. Logic says, stop, but the spirit says, go. This friction generates a tremendous amount of heat, and that heat is what forges character. You cannot buy this kind of character. You cannot read about it in a book and possess it. You have to earn it in the trenches of defeat. The scar tissue that forms over your failures becomes your armor. The relentless wear their scars not as badges of shame, but as medals of honor. Each failure is proof that they were in the arena, that they dared greatly. As we go deeper into this mindset, we realize that failure is merely a linguistic construct. In the natural world, there is no failure, only adaptation. A river that is blocked by a rock does not fail. It finds a way around, or it builds up enough pressure to go over, or it erodes the rock over time. The resilient human adopts the properties of water. They are fluid, adaptable, and persistent. If the front door is locked, they try the back door. If the back door is locked, they try the window. If the window is locked, they dig a tunnel. They are not fixated on the method. They are fixated on the outcome. This flexibility allows them to navigate the chaotic landscape of life without snapping. The rigid oak tree breaks in the storm, but the bamboo bends and survives. The psychology of the relentless is the psychology of the bamboo, rooted deeply, but flexible enough to endure the hurricane. In the end, the courage to go on is a decision made not once, but 1,000 times a day. It is not a permanent state of being, but a continuous act of rebellion against the urge to settle. It is waking up every morning with the memory of yesterday's defeat fresh in your mind, and choosing to hope anyway. It is looking at the empty canvas, the blank page, the broken business, or the shattered relationship, and whispering, I can build something here. It is the audacious belief that your story is not over just because this chapter was a tragedy. It is the understanding that the only true failure is the failure to try one more time. And in that one more time, entire universes are born. The striver knows that the darkest hour is indeed just before the dawn, but they also know that if the dawn doesn't come, they will build their own light. The architecture of this mindset is built on a foundation of radical responsibility. This is distinct from self-blame. Self-blame is a paralyzing agent that says, I'm bad because I failed. Radical responsibility is an empowering agent that says, I am responsible for my response to this failure. It acknowledges that while you may not have chosen the obstacle, you have absolute authority over your reaction to it. This shifts the dynamic from a passive experience of suffering to an active experience of problem solving. When you take responsibility, you reclaim your agency. You move from being a character in someone else's story to being the author of your own. The relentless individual looks at the wreckage of a failed attempt and sees it as raw material. They ask, how can I use this? How does this serve the mission? This alchemy turns lead into gold, turns pain into perspective, and turns tragedy into triumph. This relentless drive is also fueled by a profound sense of mortality. Paradoxically, thinking about death is one of the greatest motivators for life. The person who strives endlessly knows that their time is finite. They feel the ticking of the clock in their bones. They understand that they will one day return to dust, and this realization strips away the trivial fears that hold others back. Who cares if you get rejected? You're going to die anyway. Who cares if you go broke? You can't take it with you. The only thing that matters is how fully you lived and how deeply you loved and how hard you tried. This memento mori perspective provides a backdrop against which failure seems insignificant compared to the tragedy of never having tried. They run towards their goals, not just to achieve them, but to ensure that when they take their final breath, they are completely used up, having held nothing in reserve. Consider the sunk cost fallacy, a logical bias where people continue down a path just because they've already invested time in it. The resilient mind interacts with this differently. They don't persist out of a stubborn refusal to admit they were wrong. They persist because their vision is adaptable. They are willing to pivot. They don't keep banging their head against the same wall. They look for a sledgehammer. There's a difference between insanity, doing the same thing and expecting different results, and perseverance, doing different things to achieve the same result. The relentless are constant experimenters. They view their lives as a laboratory. A failed experiment in a lab is not a cause for tears. It is a successful elimination of a variable that doesn't work. By scientific definition, they are closer to the solution than they were yesterday. This clinical detachment from the emotional sting of failure allows them to maintain their enthusiasm. As Winston Churchill said, "Success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm." Finally, before we transition to the deeper mechanics of how to build this mindset, we must acknowledge the spiritual dimension of striving. Whether religious or secular, the act of getting up again and again is an act of faith. It is a declaration that there is order in the chaos, that effort eventually yields reward, and that the human spirit is designed for ascension. When a person strives despite a million failures, they are aligning themselves with the fundamental creative force of the universe. Look at nature. The seed pushes through the dirt, the chick pecks through the shell, the wound heals itself. Life is defined by the struggle to exist and expand. By refusing to quit, you are participating in the great cosmic dance of expansion. You are honoring the gift of life by testing its limits. You are finding out what you are truly made of, and in doing so, you inspire everyone around you to question their own self-imposed limitations. You become a living testament to the possibility of the impossible. The architecture of human resilience is not merely about bouncing back. It is about the concept of antifragility. While the resilient resist the shock and stay the same, the antifragile get better because of the shock. This is the next evolution in the psychology of the relentless. They have moved beyond the desire for a smooth life and have embraced the necessity of chaos. Just as the immune system requires exposure to pathogens to develop antibodies, the human spirit requires exposure to failure to develop capacity. The person who strives through a million defeats understands that safety is a mirage that leads to atrophy. They do not seek to minimize risk to zero. They seek to maximize their adaptation to stress. They view every calamity not as a stop sign, but as a stressor designed to trigger a growth response. This is a radical departure from the comfort-seeking directive of the modern world. By voluntarily stepping into the arena of difficulty, they are hacking their own evolution, forcing their minds and bodies to upgrade in real time. We must also confront the valley of despair. In every great endeavor, there is a honeymoon phase where enthusiasm is high, followed by a precipitous drop when the reality of the work sets in. This is where the dream goes to die for the majority. But for the relentless, this valley is not a grave. It is a filter. They understand that the difficulty is precisely what makes the destination valuable. If it were easy, everyone would do it, and the reward would be diluted to meaninglessness. And they reframe the pain of the valley as the barrier to entry that keeps the competition out. When they feel like quitting, they remind themselves that this is the exact moment where their rivals are putting down their tools. By persisting through the monotonous, unglamorous middle, they are buying stock in their own future at a time when everyone else is selling. They find a grim satisfaction in the grind, knowing that the slog is the only bridge to the summit. There is a profound psychological weapon known as sublimation, the defense mechanism where socially unacceptable impulses or raw negative emotions are transformed into socially constructive actions. The relentless individual is often a master alchemist of emotion. They take their rage, their sorrow, their heartbreak, and their feelings of inadequacy, and instead of letting these emotions consume them, they channel them into their craft. They burn the fuel of their trauma in the engine of their ambition. The anger becomes focus, the sadness becomes depth, the rejection becomes a chip on the shoulder that demands excellence. They stop trying to fix their negative emotions and start trying to use them. This is why you often see people emerge from catastrophic life events, divorce, bankruptcy, loss, with a terrifying level of drive. They have learned that energy is energy, and even dark energy can create light if it is directed through the right prism. Let us explore the concept of decision fatigue and the automation of excellence. Willpower is a finite resource. You wake up with a full tank, and every decision you make drains it. The person who survives a million failures does not rely on willpower alone. That would be sustainable only for a sprint. Instead, they build systems. They automate the basics of their existence so that they don't have to decide to work hard. They just work. They create an environment where doing the difficult thing is the default option. They remove the friction from good habits and add friction to bad ones. By turning excellence into a routine, they bypass the negotiation phase of the brain that says, "I don't feel like it today." They stop asking themselves how they feel and start asking what the schedule demands. They become professionals in a world of amateurs. The amateur waits for inspiration. The professional knows that inspiration is a byproduct of the work, not a prerequisite for it. This brings us to the identity behavior loop. Most people try to change their behavior to achieve a result. hoping that the result will change how they see themselves. If I lose weight, I will be a healthy person. The relentless flip this equation. They change their identity first. They tell themselves, I am the type of person who never misses a workout, or I am the type of person who finds a solution. Once this identity is locked in, the behavior flows naturally because humans have a deep psychological need to act in accordance with how they define themselves. When they fail, it creates cognitive dissonance, a mental discomfort because the failure doesn't match their identity. To resolve this tension, they must try again. They are not striving to become something new. They are striving to align reality with the truth they have already established in their minds. They are simply acting out the script of the character they have chosen to play. We must also discuss the support structure of solitude. While we touched on loneliness, there is a deeper layer here, the curation of influence. The relentless are often ruthless about their environment. They understand that attitudes are contagious. If you're surrounded by cynical, defeated people, you will inhale their defeat like secondhand smoke. The person who keeps going often has to prune their social circle, sometimes painfully cutting off friends or family who serve as anchors rather than sails. They seek out expanders, people who are living proof that what they want is possible. Even if they cannot meet these people in real life, they surround themselves with their books, their podcasts, their words. They build a virtual board of advisors. They curate their digital inputs to ensure that every piece of information entering their brain reinforces the belief that they can overcome. They protect their mindset as if it were a fortress, knowing that a single seed of doubt planted by a naysayer can grow into a forest of failure. The psychology of the relentless also involves a nuanced relationship with intuition versus logic. Logic often dictates that after a certain number of failures, the smart thing to do is quit. Logic analyzes the data and predicts a negative outcome, but the striver possesses a developed intuition, a gut feeling that sees patterns logic misses. They sense a breakthrough before it becomes visible. This is not blind delusion. It is subconscious pattern recognition. They can feel the wall weakening even if it hasn't cracked yet. They trust this internal compass more than the external map. This trust in the self is the ultimate rebellion. It is the ability to stand in a room full of experts who say, it's impossible, and quietly think, maybe for you. This intellectual arrogance is necessary. You have to be just crazy enough to believe you are right when the whole world says you are wrong, but humble enough to learn why you are currently failing. There is a distinct temporal distortion that occurs in the minds of the perseverant. When you are in the midst of suffering, a minute feels like an hour. The relentless learn to compress time. They stop looking at the mountain and start looking at their feet. They enter a flow state where the past and future dissolve and only the immediate action exists. This mindfulness is a survival mechanism. If you carry the weight of the past million failures and the anxiety of the future million attempts, you will collapse. By narrowing their focus to the eternal now, they make the unbearable bearable. They live life in 24-hour compartments. Can I survive today? The answer is almost always yes. By stringing together enough successful todays, they eventually arrive at a destiny that seemed impossible from the starting line. They master the art of being present in the pain without being defined by it. Deep within this psychology is the refusal of victimhood. We live in an era that incentivizes fragility, where status is often gained by displaying one's wounds. The relentless individual rejects this currency. They refuse to be pitied. They understand that while they may have been victimized by circumstances, adopting the identity of a victim is a voluntary surrender of power. A victim waits for a savior. A victor saves themselves. When they fail, they do not look for someone to blame. They look for the lesson. They possess agency, the belief that their actions have an impact on the world. This agency is the antidote to hopelessness. Even in a prison cell, even in a hospital bed, even in the ruins of a bankrupt business, they retain the freedom to choose their attitude. As Viktor Frankl observed, this is the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's own way. By exercising this freedom, they transcend their suffering. We must also look at the scarcity of greatness. The relentless understand basic economics. Value is driven by scarcity. If greatness were abundant, it would be worthless. The fact that it is hard, the fact that it breaks people is what gives it value. They view the high failure rate not as a deterrent, but as a confirmation that they are chasing something worth catching. They respect the difficulty. They approach their craft with a reverence, knowing that the gatekeepers of success, discipline, sacrifice, persistence cannot be bribed. They must be paid in sweat. This perspective prevents entitlement. They don't expect the world to bow to them just because they showed up. They know they have to outlast the rest. They play the game of attrition, knowing that if they just keep standing, eventually there will be no one left standing next to them. There's a narrative arc that these individuals subconsciously write for themselves. Humans are storytelling creatures. We make sense of our lives through narrative. The person who quits tells themselves a tragedy. I tried, I failed, it wasn't meant to be. The person who perseveres tells themselves a hero's journey. In every great movie, the hero must fall. The hero must be stripped of everything. The hero must face a moment where all hope is lost. Without these beats, the movie is boring. The relentless individual looks at their catastrophic failure and thinks, this is the part of the movie where the hero gets beaten up. This is necessary for the climax. By framing their life as a movie in progress, they detach from the immediate sting of defeat and view it as a plot point. They become the director of their own biopic, ensuring that the ending is one of redemption, not resignation. Let us touch upon the physiognomy of grit. Resilience is not just mental, it is physiological. The relentless often take care of their physical vessel because they know it is the hardware that runs the software of the mind. Sleep, nutrition, and exercise are not vanity metrics, they are performance requirements. You cannot have a strong mind and a weak body forever. The discipline to train the body often translates to the discipline to train the mind. The pain of a hard run or a heavy lift teaches the nervous system how to handle stress. It teaches the brain that I can endure discomfort and I will be okay. This physical feedback loop reinforces the psychological resolve. While they armor themselves physically to withstand the mental siege of failure, they treat themselves like a high-performance athlete, even if their sport is business, art, or parenting. Furthermore, there is the concept of legacy and intergenerational alchemy. Many who strive do so because they are trying to break a chain. They are carrying the trauma of their parents and grandparents, poverty, addiction, abuse, mediocrity. They feel the weight of their ancestors on their shoulders. They decide that the trauma stops with them. They are willing to suffer the pain of change so that their children do not have to suffer the pain of the same old cycles. This motivation is nuclear. It is not about buying a better car. It is about altering the genetic expression of their lineage. They are fighting for the souls of the unborn. When the motivation is this deep, failure is not an option because the cost of quitting is paid by someone else. They are the transitional generation, the bridge between the darkness of the past and the light of the future. This responsibility overrides the desire for comfort. Consider the delusion of the breakthrough. We often think success is a linear accumulation, but it is often an exponential explosion following a long plateau. The bamboo tree spends 5 years growing its roots underground with no visible growth above the surface. Then, in 6 weeks, it shoots up 90 feet. The relentless understand this biology. They know that during the times when nothing is happening, everything is happening. The roots are deepening, the foundation is settling. They are comfortable with the invisible season. They do not pull up the seed every day to check if it has roots because they trust the process of nature. They have faith in the lag time. They understand that the universe operates on a delay. You do the work today, and you get the check in 5 years. Most people quit during the delay. The relentless work through the delay, knowing the check is in the mail. Finally, we arrive at the peace of total exhaustion. There is a specific kind of serenity that comes from knowing you have nothing left to give. When you have thrown every ounce of your being at a problem, when you have tried every key on the key ring, when you have exhausted every logical possibility and you still keep going, you enter a state of grace. You are no longer fighting the world, you are flowing with it. You have merged with your mission. The separation between you and the work disappears. You become the vessel. In this state, failure loses its power to hurt you because you have already accepted the worst-case scenario and decided to proceed anyway. You become dangerous to the status quo because you have nothing to lose. A person with nothing to lose and a burning desire is the most powerful force on earth. The ultimate realization of the relentless is that the prize was never the point. The person you become by striving is the prize. The trophy will rust, the money will be spent, the fame will fade. But the character you forged in the fire of adversity is eternal. It is the one thing you can take with you. It is the gold that cannot be stolen. The ability to look in the mirror and respect the person staring back, that is the definition of success. The courage to go on, to strive even though it fails 1,000,000 times, is the ultimate act of self-definition. It is the declaration that I am here, I matter, and I will not be silenced by the difficulty of existence. So they pick up the brick, they wipe the sweat from their brow, they ignore the jeers of the crowd, and they lay the brick, not because they are guaranteed to build the castle, but because the act of laying the brick is who they are. And in that act, they are already free. They have already won. The outcome is just a detail. The victory was in the decision to try. The journey concludes not with a loud fanfare, but with a quiet understanding. The universe respects stubbornness. It yields to those who refuse to take no for an answer. The doors that seemed locked were only locked to those who knocked once and walked away. To the one who knocks 1,000,000 times, the door eventually unhinges. The wall eventually crumbles. The reality eventually bends. The psychology of the relentless is a testament to the fact that the human will is the most potent force in nature. It can reshape matter, it can bend time, and it can alter destiny. So, if you are standing in the wreckage of your latest failure, know this. You are not buried, you are planted. The pressure you feel is not the end, it is the beginning of your expansion. Stand up, dust off. The next attempt is not just another try, it is the culmination of everything you have learned. Go again and again, until the world runs out of ways to stop you.